Hi, Paul Caligiuri of SoccerOne here at the NSCAA convention. I'm here delighted to be with Jim Liston. Tell us what you do, not only with Toronto FC, but also in sports science in general.
Sure. I'm the director of sports science. It's my second year up at Toronto. And I have 2 pro teams and 6 academy teams. So, the challenge is the different, knowing the difference between the under 10s and the under 11s and what we're doing with our 30-year-olds. And so my role is to tie the medical portion and the performance portion together. I'm here for the NSCAA convention to talk about youth development, though.
So when you speak, and obviously you kind of flow through it,
yeah.
I'm thinking, like, how do you tie that in? I mean, what do you need to do from a standpoint of tying it all together? Be a little more specific maybe
Sure.
on things that you're really developing, because this is cutting-edge stuff.
Sure. Well, I think it's, because we have a big budget with the pro team, the tools that you need for player development are much greater. So we take that bird's eye view, 30,000-foot view. We use Sports Office so we can keep track of medical, performance, contractual, competition days. And how then can we, at the youth level, to provide to our academy players a way to quantify work? How are we going to measure recovery? How do we share best practices within the club with the academy coaches, the athletic training staff, and the performance staff? And what tools do we use to do that? And so my job is to experiment with the technology, find out what works, and see what fits our budget for the pro team versus the academy team. And here at the convention, I was trying to demonstrate some, very inexpensive tools that could help you keep track of your players' development.
Fantastic. I met you, Jim, when I was playing with the LA Galaxy.
It's been a few years.
It has been a few years, but it was amazing years. I was in the latter part of my career,
right.
And you started introducing things such as recovery, the importance of nutrition,
Yep.
in the locker room, at halftime, things that we should eat, and then
Yep.
post-game within 20 minutes. Do you remember that? And how has it evolved since then?
Well, I think that's great. I just saw Ryan Alexander from the men's national team, and he was just, as I popped my head in there, he was talking about recovery and making sure that you get that recovery shake or food within 30 minutes. So I think that hasn't changed. I think that probably the choice, the combination of the number of carbohydrates and proteins you need, the number of calories that you should have based on your size has changed, because I think we just gather more information. But with that, Paul, they got all this information. Now I think it's up to us to whittle away and let's make sure that we know what information is most important. But I think the measurement is fantastic. Like, you remember, we used to use polar heart rate monitor. I had 2 of them. That was my budget. And it would beep when somebody's heart rate got to 160. And then I'd have to use a heart rate monitor on you. And I actually use you and Clint Mathis. And I still use that slide in some of my presentations.
Because it beeped at 160, right?
No, not you.
Oh, got it.
It didn't happen with you. But now everybody's got a heart rate monitor and everybody's got a Catapult GPS system they're wearing. So we're getting wonderful data, and it's really just our job to make sure that we're using it effectively.
So I coach youth soccer. And a lot of these coaches here coach college and youth soccer. I was fortunate when you brought kind of the special bakery in. I mean, you had someone specially bake.
Right.
What was that called again?
We called it bounce back bread. So you
what
bounce
was that?
back. It was a secret recipe. I can't share that, Paul.
Right, I want the bounce back. I really need that. But I coach youth soccer.
Yeah.
Now I head into halftime or even post-game, and a lot of times you have games twice a day.
Right.
What can you recommend to everybody, the entire America, how to eat, even if it's just generic stuff that we're hearing?
Right.
Because when you start talking carbohydrates versus proteins, I mean, this is science. This is not like layman's terms.
Yeah, and I think it's, without getting too scientific, it's high glycemic foods. And I'm going to say things like graham crackers and white bread, and people will look at you like, that's kind of crazy. Well, the high glycemic carbohydrates, they break down quickly, they get into the bloodstream quickly, and they get stored in the muscle cells quickly. That's why recovery drinks are great as well. And recovery drinks that have not only carbohydrates, they have some protein, and they have electrolytes. It's a wonderful thing, especially if you have a game 3 hours later. So it's got to be foods that, A, are familiar to the player. Like, I could say the best thing you should have is graham crackers and somebody doesn't like them, or eat peanuts because that's a good protein source and allergic to peanut butter. But they're familiar foods and they break down quickly and they don't upset the person's stomach.
Like graham crackers and I'm allergic to peanuts. What is it?
Well, then you better have a rice cake.
There you go.
Or have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I want that bounce back.
That's not, it's a secret recipe, and we'll have to talk with Tina.
Right.
But it's foods that they like and they break down quickly.
So what else can we foresee coming in the future? You're obviously the best in the business. You run a CATS program that's been very successful in terms of athletic training. You worked with the LA Galaxy, the national team. Now you're at Toronto FC, and there's no surprise because former teammates are there and they know who you are and they brought you to Toronto. But what can we look forward to in the future of where this is going, maybe technology-based?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question, and I think I'm going to speak about it tomorrow. Is there's a huge difference between developmental age and chronological age. Every 12-year-old isn't the same height and the same weight. Every 15-year-old isn't the same height, same weight. Intellectually, socially, physically, mentally, hormonally, attitudinally, they're all different. And I think from a tech standpoint, and just from a coaching standpoint, is as we are looking at our teams of 12-year-olds, 13, 14, 15, and they progress and they're getting older, more mature, and going through their growth spurt, we need to kind of keep track of where they are developmentally. So the programming becomes individual for where they are at that point in time. You know, you could be a late bloomer or an early bloomer. Should they be doing the same session? Should they be doing the same work on their own? And the answer is no. So the challenge is getting the technology to determine where they are growth-wise. And I have a few field tests that I'll show tomorrow, just a simple overhead stick squat and a broad jump, to get a gauge of where your player is. So we can give them the most important information for that player at that moment in time. That's what I see really enhancing over the next few years.
Extremely important, because while you're talking to me, or us, I'm thinking to myself, wait, I have these parents that come up to me all the time and says, well, so-and-so, my son or daughter, they're not quite there. And I said, wait a minute, just give it time. I mean, she's in a growth period. He's a growth period. Be patient. So even with families that have multiple kids and been through it before, there's still that little sense of they're keeping up with the pace or not. Do you feel that the U.S. soccer mandates, by going calendar age, assist with this process?
That's a good question, and I think it could help. I'm not sure the answer to that until we spend a few years and come back, look back and say that was a great idea. It appears to be. Lines up with other countries. But I think what the point you're making about telling, let's tell the parent to be patient, is you can get a kid that was the fastest at 12 and the slowest at 13. They're heartbroken, they're gutted. And as long as the parent knows, and you as a coach know, you just grew 3 inches. I just had to buy, mom and dad had to spend, $300 to have 2 new pair of cleats this year. Your feet grew, you got 3 inches taller, your coordination goes down. It's okay, it's gonna come back. We lose 70% of kids to sports at age 13 because it's not fun, and that's a problem. So if we can say, hold your horses, it's okay. Growing's a good thing. I wish I was a little taller. That the speed will come back. It's there. It's in the bank, don't worry.
So here we're at the NSCAA convention. Obviously, you're one of the key speakers here doing these kind of seminars and speeches. Are we going to be able to have some more access to Jim Liston knowledge or things of this material as we do roll out the mandates, as we do see this? Because really, when you did say, wait, this player used to be the fastest, it's not, or it was the most skillful, it's not, we don't want to lose that player just because they've lost something for that period, or vice versa. Like I indicated, you're not quite there, give it time, let's see how it comes to fruition. So will we have access to more of this in the future?
Yeah, and I know, my passion has been in the sport for so many years. I was fortunate to meet you when the league started. It's been 20 years, and I started full-time with the Galaxy in '98. And having now worked with the pros, but also with the academy, and being a dad, I have an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, you will have access to that. And we're collecting real data now. In Toronto, we have academy from under 10 all the way to U18. I also have at my Cat Sports, catsports.com, you can find things about coaching and the difference between developmental age. So we can make it easier and gentler for these kids as they're going through a real difficult time in their life. As you know, as a parent, middle school and high school can be a disaster. So yeah, the short answer is yes, Cal. I will be out there.
You're not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
So Cat Sports, that's what CATZ sports.com. I just have one more question. And be honest, was Greg Vanney your favorite Galaxy player?
Of course.
I love you, Jim. Thank you very much. Paul Caligiuri with SoccerOne, Jim Liston, NSCAA, Baltimore.